what's up out there, you guys? Marty Schwartz here, GuitarJamz.com. I'm in my laboratory and get a lot of emails about amps and how do I get my amp to sound more like that rock, that AC/DC sound. So what I want to do is I'm going to show you around my lab just for a second, and I'm going to demo a really fancy amp here, which is the Divided by 13 CJ11, and then I'm going to go through a cheaper amp and show you how to get a few different tones out of it. Just give you an idea of how it works a little bit. Alright, so let's do it. I'm going to show you my favorite amp. Is my Divided by 13 CJ11. This is a tube amplifier, so sometimes there's amps that are tube amps that actually have, if we open up the back here, these glass tubes in the back, based on a very old technology like the old television sets and whatnot. But basically what you get with these tube amps that are in the back of there, they get really hot and warmed up, and you get a super warm sound. And also there's something about the distortion with tube amps that it feels like the sustain is longer to me, and it also feels, it's hard to describe, but there's definitely more of an organic feeling when you're playing with the tube amps, and they're obviously more expensive. So basically on this particular amp we've got, some of you have heard of standby switches and all that stuff, but basically what you have on this amp is very simple. Most amps you're going to have bass and treble, and some amps have mids. But if you look here, there's a thing that says MV, that's master volume, and then if you look over here, that's regular volume. But basically all amps that you're dealing with, especially new amps, and by the way I see my laser light there, how's it going? But basically on this particular amp, the regular volume is working as what's called gain. So sometimes you're going to see a switch that's called gain, sometimes you're going to see a knob that's called overdrive, sometimes you're going to see a knob that's called distortion. But however you look at it, they're all the same thing. They control the amount of fuzziness and grit, that drive. On the Divided by 13, it's called volume, but typically it's called gain most of the time. Sometimes it's called drive. Alright? And then this master volume is just simply the level of volume. So I'm just going to show you how I set it up. Basically what I like to do is I don't turn my bass all the way up. I tend to have it around 12 o'clock or so. Depends on the guitar. And then treble I always turn up farther than my bass. So we start like that. Mids I always have the lowest. Usually if this amp had mids, I would have it quite low. That's how I like to do it. But so basically, if you want a really distorted sound, I would have my gain turned way up. That's the amount of distortion. But you don't want to like blow the windows out of your house if you're practicing. So then what we do is we have a master volume, and we usually keep that a little bit lower so we can get our rock sound without it being too loud though. So that's the concept there. Let's take a listen to that. So I've got my my gain, which on the Divided by 13 is just called regular volume, but it's the gain or the drive. I've got that turned really far up, and then the master volume is just how loud I want that distortion to be, the overall level. So right now you'll hear I've got a nice rock sound without it even distorting the mic on my computer here. All right, so nice. And for that tone, I'm using this front pickup here, this is switched up. But so check this out. I'll turn the gain
or the drive on this is called volume. I'm going to turn that down. And you hear it's real quiet, right? It's because I've turned the distortion amount down. So now to get a clean tone, I just turn the master volume up until I get it to the desired tone volume. Listen to this. See, now it's all clean. All with the same amp. Now some amps have multiple channels, and so what you get with that is you actually have separate controls. So you can have one channel is all distorted and rock, and then your other channel is clean, and then you can use a foot switch to switch between the two. Now this divided by 13 is just one channel, so I use it for recording mostly, and then when I use it live I use a distortion booster pedal that has gain in the pedal, so I can just click down on that and get a rockin' sound, click it, turn it off, and get a clean sound. So that's kind of what we're dealing with here. Now the other thing I want to show you is a really cool beginner amp. It's called the Vox and DA5. Now Vox actually makes really fancy tube amps as well, but this is a nice beginner amp with a lot of different effects and different things. You'll notice, like the Line 6 amp is kind of a similar thing. But I'm just gonna show you how to get kind of a super rock sound out of something like this, and the concept's the same. So so let me show you that.
So here are the controls of this little Vox amp, and just like the fancy amp, I mean this is only about a $100 amp. So even though it's and it's not a tube amp, so it's kind of built on a digital kind of technology, which you notice a lot when you're trying to play with a band. It doesn't tend to sound like it cuts through as much or as natural sounding. But basically you've got a gain control, tone control, and a master volume. So once again, just even though this is a cheap little amp, you still have the same concept of a master volume and a gain. This has a bunch of presets that kind of give you different sounds modeled after different things that you're going for. Now I went to Crunch. It's called Crunch 2. I'm going to turn the gain way up like that, and the master volume relatively low to just see what it. And so if I turn the master way up, you're going to hear the gain. If I turn the gain down, it goes to more clean. Actually, I turned the gain down too much there. And as I turn the gain up, so that's going to give you that rock sound. Now I could go high gain, drive. They're all just different kind of models, but the basic concept's always the same. You got the gain is the amount of distortion, and the master is the overall level. Okay, so then you have something like this. This is a kind of the same concept, a beat up amp here. This one actually has a channel switcher, which you'll see on little Fender amps and things. So you've got an overdrive section here, which once again you've got gain and master volume, and then over here is all the presets for the clean tone. So if I have it pushed in, this is controlling the distortion. If I click it out, then I've got the clean level here, and the treble, the mids, the bass, and the reverb. Now these presets, the treble, mid, and bass, is going to work for either channel, but I can switch it in, and now I'm controlling an amount of distortion with the master volume here. Click it out, I've got a clean level, but then these control both channels. So it's that same concept once again. Alright? Welcome to GuitarJamz Labs. Mr. 3PO, welcome. Giant harmonica, gas heater, got movie lights, posters, laminates of the past, guitars strewn about, tons of educational materials here, strings of course, books, a bass for demos, workstation,